Well, hi, everybody. Welcome once again. Betty, you're right there in the middle of the bus, and we're on our way to Canada.
Yeah, I was thinking of who is that lady standing there on the bus? Doesn't she know she's not supposed to stand up on the bus?
You don't recognize yourself from
not
the back?
From the back. I don't see the back of me very often.
You've got to be careful, because I think, was it this trip that you...
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
We don't talk about that, if you don't mind. Well, that's just something in that.
You want to make sure that you're not standing up in the bus, because
That's right.
you can get yourself a little bit.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really? I would never
you can break a rib that way.
I would never have thought that could happen.
That can happen. So you want to make sure that
so we
when
do
the bus
as
is moving, you're sitting down.
Well, so we do as I say and not as I do,
That's
right?
right, yeah.
That's a good philosophy to follow, Marv. Not funny.
Anyway, no, I know it's not funny, but you're not
funny.
supposed to stand up in the bus when it's moving, you know.
Well,
in fact, now even in Europe, I think they make you wear the seatbelts in the bus.
Well,
anyway, here we are
right.
at Port Angeles in Washington State, and we're going to catch the ferry, as it says right there on the side, to Victoria, because we're going to go over to Canada. And we had a little bit of time. We got there nice and early, and thank goodness we did, because boy, there's a lot of cars, even though it's a big ferry boat.
And but you have a time that you have to be there. You have an appointment, and if you're not there for your appointment, forget it.
We had a good breakfast in this restaurant.
That was good.
Oh,
that was good.
They served the best food in that place. We asked a guy outside. We said, "Where should we go here in Port Angeles?" He says, "Well, go right inside. This is the best restaurant in town."
But we had more of a brunch. You had a great sandwich, didn't you? Because I took a great big bite out of it. You remember?
Yeah. Oh,
and all I did was order that big sweet roll.
You had a big cinnamon roll.
That's it.
It lasted for a week.
That's right. So I shared. I would not just like you shared your sandwich with me.
Well, anyway, it was good. If you ever go up to Port Angeles and you have a little time before the ferry goes on over to Victoria, stop at that place. I recommend it highly.
Yeah,
it was
and
good.
Such generous serving.
Generous serving,
yes.
and it was not that expensive either. Here comes one of the boats. In fact, I think that's the one that we're going to take. That one is coming in. But here's another express. Now this one zonks right on over to Victoria very, very fast.
What does it do?
It zoinks over real fast.
Really?
I mean, I was going to say it skims across the top of the water, but it doesn't do that.
Well, it's a little big to skip across the water.
Yeah. Although they have those, what do you call hydrofoils?
Hydrofoils,
right?
yeah.
Anyway,
that ain't one.
No, that's not one. Anyway, it's a little passenger boat that goes over there too. Anyway, we're in the bus right now, and so we are loading the bus and us folks into the ferry boat itself. And I like these ferry boats. They're wonderful.
I think it's, when it's a marvel how they put you on the bus. I used to be frightened, but I kept thinking, well, they're going to have too many on one side, and we're going to tip over, or you're going to drive right off of it, But they have a regular system that they do that is just wonderful.
Well, these guys do and gals too.
Hello.
Because they're both. I mean, they do this day in and day out, and it's really great. But these boats have all the amenities on it, and I needed to call a friend of mine. And I thought, well, I can't do that on the boat, can I? And I thought, they had pay telephones on the boat. You can call from the boat.
I didn't realize they had payphones. Yeah. But they do have, a restaurant. And,
everything. You have a sit-down restaurant, plus you have the buffet, what do you call it, cafeteria.
A little snack bar, too.
Oh, no, yeah.
And the table's there by the windows, so that if you don't want to walk around or sit outside, you're very comfortable. It's quite warm. And it's got a lot of amenities to it.
And for the kids, they have all of the amusements. You can.
There we go. What I was talking about.
Some of our group.
Yeah.
Right there, and it was nice. You can see how nice and warm it was inside there. How bright it is.
Even and I drink to you.
Kind of cold outside, but you do have to go outside. You want to take a look anyway.
Absolutely. We went on up to the very top deck. And it was windy, but it was not that cold. It was just sort of invigorating, and you got the smell of the sea, and I loved it. I just loved that.
Oh, I think it's really nice. And then when you take the ferry boat from the other side of the island on over to the other part of Canada, you go through the San Juan Islands, which is even probably more picturesque than going from Washington, where we did, right over to Victoria. But anyway, it's nice, and it's fun, and it's great. And it's a wonderful, wonderful trip. And look at there. I mean, people are going in seaplanes, and
well, there are a lot of homes, right? Well, that's over by the San Juan Islands.
Yeah.
But that's their method of, if you have a lot of money, you can have your own plane and fly home.
Oh, yeah,
home.
There's a lot of people that were going out also whale watching on the day that we were coming to Victoria. This guy was having all sorts of fun. He would just I think he thought maybe he might spray us a little bit, something
Well, I
like
think
that.
he was giving a thrill to the passengers,
Yeah.
because that always adds to the
He was
the
just
thrill of it.
welcoming us,
Yeah,
I think,
yeah, yeah.
Right. Anyway, here's some more whale
But look at
watchers
how
there.
well how well they are clothed,
Yes,
with their life
indeed.
jackets and everything.
Well, now we have finally arrived in Canada, and now the unloading begins, and they do this so fast. It was just amazing to me.
Weren't we
Betty.
one of the
You know?
first off?
We were right kind of
Right.
up there in the almost in the front of the line.
Okay.
But I mean, they do this fast, and then they turn around and they fill it back up again, and bingo, out they go, then back to the other side. There's the
Oh,
beautiful
yeah.
Empress Hotel.
World
Oh,
famous,
it
really
was.
world famous.
But one of the
isn't it?
places that we wanted to visit was it's a replica of Anne Hathaway's cottage. That you see at where is that? Stratford on Avon in England. And we've been there, and we've been to this one in Canada, and we thought, Betty and I both agreed, that the guide that we had here in Canada, we thought surpassed the one that we had in England. So we're going to go inside in just a moment. We're going to listen to our guide, and she is so funny. And to listen to where all these English expressions, I can't even say the word, came into our language and how they've stuck, we're going to find out right now.
Cottage, the cold would come up through that in the wintertime and make this floor unbearable to stand on. Now, so we changed it to cement, but believe you me, after a 9-hour day, it's just as hard on the legs. Okay? Now, one thing that we'll talk about upstairs a little bit later, but the one most fascinating thing about this period of time were the words that they used. Now, that doesn't sound very exciting, but it really was. Words that they used to describe innocent, ordinary, everyday things, which over the years, for some peculiar reason, have become our sayings. And I'm going to give you quite a few of them today. To start with, the stone floor was very cold. That's where stone cold originated from. If you're wealthy, you can afford this floor. If you're poor, forget it. It took a lot of money and a lot of muscles to put it in. So if you're poor, all you had on your kitchen floor would be dirt if you were poor. That would make you dirt poor. And that's where that one came from. Now, a little bit about the house here. In the wintertime, you only have 29 people to feed and house. And in the summertime, you would have 62. Now that sounds like quite the mittful, and boy, was it ever. The original Hathaway farm came with 90 acres worth of prime farmland. Okay, and that 90 acres has no machinery on it to do the farming, so you're going to end up having to actually get people to help you out, and you're going to need a lot of them, 40 of them, to help you out in the summertime, in the latter half of the spring, and the early part of the fall. 40 farm hands, and they can't work a 16-hour shift for you, walk all the way home and all the way back, only to be back to work for another 16-hour shift, okay? What you're going to end up having to do is house them here. So when we go upstairs, I'll show you the brothers' room where 43 people would sleep on the floor. And it's the same size as this room right here. Okay? You also have to feed them. And if you think 40 people is enough to feed, try 15 extra, because you've got 10 to 15 kids on average. 7 children was a small family, 20 children was considered reasonably large. Okay? 40 farm hands, 15 children, 5 serving girls to help out the mother, and the father. So there's 62 people, and they eat at that table. Isn't that going to be fun work? Okay, so you have to work shift work just like we would today when a family reunion comes over. Slap, 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 slap. Hurry up, eat, shoot, out you go. And the next shift comes in. By the time you finish breakfast, it's lunchtime. By the time you finish lunch, it's dinner. By the time you finish dinner, it's bedtime. And what you're going to make is you're going to make stew. And you're going to eat that every meal of the day, every day of the year. Okay? You had a devil's claw and a big pot that would hold your stew. Your turnips, your parsnips, your carrots, root vegetables, very common, meat, garlic, onions, you're going to make your stew out of that. No tomatoes, because tomatoes they considered poisonous and they were the act of the devil, so they never ate them. Potatoes weren't even around at that particular period of time, so there were no potatoes in their food. Okay? And the problem was the rich people ate the wrong food. The poor people didn't get enough, and both of them unfortunately overcooked their food. Perfect example of that Keep on adding to the pot. When you go to retire for the evening, put the lid on it. The next morning, get up, add more broth, more meat, more vegetables, and just keep right on ladling it out. So once every 9 months, you stop the pot, clean it out, and start a fresh batch. What's that stew going to be like down the bottom of the pot, guys? Isn't that going to be nummy? No minerals, no vitamins, no proteins, no nutrients of any kind. If you don't have any nutrients, you don't grow. That's why the women were 4'7", 90 pounds, the men were 5'2", 110. Full grown. That was all of Europe except for Germany, where they were smaller. Okay? Gives you a bit of an idea that every generation that's gone by, we've grown a little bit bigger because of the fact that we get more nutrients in our diet. Okay? Now, a little bit about what happens in the wintertime. Not very nice in these homes in the wintertime. Cold from the floor, cold from the thatch roof, and cold coming through the straw walls that are just covered up with a little clay, and that was wattle and daub, and that was called. Kept the wind out, didn't keep the cold out. In the wintertime, you freeze your knickers off in here in the wintertime. Let me tell you, you do. So you're going to know that the cold is coming in, so the heat is going out. So concentrate on really blast furnacing one room. This was it. The rest of the house remained bitterly cold. Okay, that's fine. Now you have to bring your kids in here. 15 kids, 2 serving girls, and a mom in this one room all winter long. Ladies, what do you think? Is that fun? Oh boy. Okay? And then anyone with bare feet would stick to the floor like your tongue does to a popsicle. If you take your foot away quick, you rip the skin off the bottom of your foot. So us mums are going to go out, collect 200-300 bulrushes, peel the leaves off of them, sprinkle them on the floor, 4 inches thick. And there you have it. Wall-to-wall carpeting, 1500 style. They called it thresh, and they did not want the children tracking the thresh outside, so they put a board up against the door frame to hold in the thresh. The board was called a threshold, because it would hold in the thresh. Makes sense, doesn't it? Okay? Now, if you think 15 kids, 2 serving girls is bad enough, listen to this. Rats and mice around the fireplace. Rich, poor, middle class, frankly, the rats didn't care. They just want food. You got 2 choices. Kick them out of the way and continue on cooking like most of them had to, or if they get that bad, fine, bring in the dogs and cats to take care of them. Now you've got dogs, cats, rats, mice, 10 to 15 kids, 2 serving girls, and a mum in this one room all winter long. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm cracking open the extra strength Tylenol. That's enough for me. Okay? You're sitting around your kitchen table, bones and scraps left over on your plate, right over your shoulder and onto the floor. They were under the impression they were feeding their dogs and cats, and then they wondered why they had rats and mice. There's a good reason for it. And then this piece is hilarious. I love this piece. This piece here was called a child's drainage chair. There are no such thing as diapers. This is where the baby is going to sit for half to 3/4 of the day, just in case, because you never know when, right? Now, take a look at those holes. No offense, gentlemen, but it must have been a man who invented this chair, because back in 1500, a man would never have seen the backside of a child, and he wouldn't have known what it looked like in order to make the holes. Okay, so that's that. And there's no pot underneath it that goes right onto the thresh floor. Okay, drizzles onto the floor, and your children were walking in that in their bare feet, and they couldn't understand why their children were ill all the time. That was the reason for it. Okay. So you get a really good idea why they didn't live very long and why they were continually ill. Because they're going to gather all this stuff up and clean it out of the house once a year. They did it in May and they called it spring cleaning. That's where spring cleaning comes from. They're also going to burn it, and they named the fire from all the bones from the kitchen table. They called it a bone fire. Over the years we've dropped the E, and that's where our bonfire comes from. Okay? And also, once a year, they are going to have their yearly bath in May as well. That's why all weddings were in June. That's where the June wedding comes from. Okay? They figured they were squeaky clean after having a bath a month before. That was a good time to get married. Why are they going to have a bath once a year? Very simple. There are devil spirits in the water, don't you know? They're highly uneducated. They take on superstition and wives' tales. They think that if they die from drinking a glass of water, it's possessed with devil spirits, not actual cholera or typhoid like it would be. So if I bathe, okay? If I bathe, then what's going to happen to me? I'm really going to be possessed with evil spirits then, aren't I? Yeah. Okay? And so you're going to fill a bathtub here, and you're going to have your yearly bath. And they couldn't understand why they were ill all the time? There's another good reason for it. Okay? So what I'm going to get till I tell you about this, just this, and then I'm done. Okay? Now this here is called a trench board. It's a piece of board with a trench carved in the middle of it to hold your stew. Okay, you're going to eat the stew, sop it up with a piece of bread, flip it over, and have dessert on the other side of it. So you know what you're going to tell your children? You can't have any dessert until you clear your plate. Last 10 to 15 years until it cracks and breaks, and I have to carve myself another one. In that period of time, it's my plate. I'm the only one that eats off of it, and it's just stew, so what's the point in cleaning it? You're just going to take the flavor out of my plate. So they never did. Not in 15 years did they ever wash their plates. Okay, what disease are you going to get from your trench board? Trench mouth, your gums turn black, your teeth fall out, rather unpleasant. Not near as bad as dying from salmonella or botulism poisonings, which you have on occasion from this plate. And not only that, of course, the tiny little holes all the way through the plates, that's not fork marks, that's where the worms lived. Now that I've totally disgusted everybody before lunch, I hope you all get 3 square meals today. I'm so mean. That's my favorite part, though. Now, of course, don't forget to take it with you when you go traveling, because this is all you have. There's not another one at the other side waiting for you. So you'd ask an innkeeper, could I please have a room, sir, and food for my board? It later got shortened to room and board. That's the board in room and board, okay? And there we have it, okay? Hands that would be helping out, doing odd jobs, fixing the barn, fixing fences, that type of thing. So you have 10 men sleeping up here with the 3 boys. That's why there are no beds, because there are so many people sleeping in this room. But in the summertime, you have 40 farm hands. They have to sleep someplace, so there'd be 43 people sleeping on the floor in this one room. Okay? Now, every room, like I said, that has 4 corners and a door in your house is going to be taxed. Where are their closets, guys?
Oh, you mean they got clean clothes?
They got, actually what ended up happening is their closets, one closet would be considered a 4 corners and a door, right? And it's made of wood. There's a double whammy in the tax department, so they and put all their stuff into trunks. And it's a good thing they did, because if they didn't, the rats and mice would have had a heyday in it anyway, and the moths and all of the other stuff. But get this, you would open up one of those things nowadays, and you'd go to get their clothes out, and they would be crawling. Okay, I'm talking fleas, and I'm talking lice. That's why the women back then and the men had tight collars against their necks, and the women had their beautiful collars for their dresses tight against the neck. That's to keep the body lice from crawling onto the face, didn't you know? Crawling up onto the face. They bathe once a year. You don't think they're going to get lice bathing once a year? Definitely. How often do they clean their clothes? Water's possessed with evil spirits, right? Twice a year they clean their clothes. And they never wash their dishes, like I told you in the parlor. Okay? Gives you an idea. Now, you decide to go on a trip. Well, don't think you're going to get out the Samsonite luggage and you're going to be on your way, because that's not going to happen. There's your suitcase. What's the difference between a trunk and a suitcase? That one's got handles. And that's the difference. Can you imagine Queen Elizabeth I and her entourage, when they went anywhere? 150 trunks, wherever she went. Those things only held 2 of her dresses. I mean, when you think about the fact that they go down, she has a 12-foot train, and they're velvet, and they've got petticoats and petticoats and petticoats, and the big rings around them too. You try to squash that up into a little piece, you're still only going to get 2 into the trunk. Okay, so every time she went anywhere on holiday, she had 150 trunks, and they would be following behind her wherever she went. Unreal, eh? Different type of lifetime completely than what we can possibly imagine, okay? So gentlemen, just before we leave, you are in an 85% tax bracket. Now, I cannot make that plain enough for everyone, okay? You take that dollar, take 85 cents of it away, you live on that 15 cents, and you raise those 15 kids with it. Good luck. You're going to need it, okay? So are you going to work a normal 8-hour a day, 5 days a week like we do today? Not on your life. 7 days a week, 16-hour shifts every day. Got 3 hours off for church on Sunday morning, which you attended, or you went to jail, or paid an actual day's fine, a day's work in fines. That was law back then. The occasional holy holiday off, few and far between. So a man that would be bent over, walking with a cane, very frail, unable to work any longer at all, would be 37 years old. 17 was middle age.
Well, that was a very nice visit to Anne Hathaway's cottage. But now we have a very exciting place to go to, and of course, this is the Bouchard Gardens, which everybody, of course, wants to go to. You know, Betty, it was in 1888 that Robert Pym Bouchard, he began manufacturing Portland cement, I think, which we all are familiar with.
Yeah, that's a famous name.
And then by the turn of the century, he became very, very successful pioneer, and he moved to the west coast of Canada because of the rich limestone deposits that are vital for the production of cement. And we'll get into a little more of the history of that after a bit. But this shows you a bit of the gardens there, a map on how you can, and even though you got a map there, you can still kind of get a little lost because there's so much to see.
You are so right. I continually got lost because I'd get in the maze, and instead of going out on the right part, I'd end up in another part, and then 5 minutes later, I'm back where I started from.
But it doesn't make any difference because there's so much to see there. So it's absolutely wonderful. And we got there right as they opened, so it was nice and fresh, and there weren't a lot of people there just yet. But it's just wonderful.
It was a beautiful day also, Marv.
Wonderful.
When we were there the last time, it was raining, and we were looking at all these beautiful creations with the umbrella over our head and over the we had to be careful of the camera. The heck with us,
Yeah.
But the sunshine made it beautiful.
Oh, it really, no kidding. It really was. Betty, they have something like, every year they have over 1 million bedding plants and some 700 varieties that are used throughout the gardens to ensure that they've got uninterrupted blooms from March through October. But they're open up in the wintertime too. And they have a lot of events. They have fireworks going on there.
Look at that. Those look like frozen popsicles. Grape popsicles. Aren't they neat?
They're beautiful.
The thing I think is one of the most important things is this: a woman did all of this.
Well, that's true.
And when you think of a woman starting something like this out of nothing, and you think in the gold rush when we had all the tailings, from the gold, they were just dug pits and they left them there just to destroy them.
Talk about the pits. That's what this was actually. Because
That's right.
Mr. Bouchard took all the limestone out of the quarry. It became a big quarry, and it was his wife Jenny who conceived the idea,
That's
like
right.
you said, to take that old bleak pit and turn it into something like this that we see. So beautiful.
Well, and it didn't look like this, of course.
Oh no! But she had to go out. She had to go out and get wagon loads of dirt from
Now,
the farmland.
where do you think she got the topsoil?
From all the farmland
From
around
the
there.
farmland
Yeah,
around?
there's a lot of farmland on the island there.
She had to be a very loving woman, too, because, you don't think of women going out and getting dirt. Well, I guess today we do, but that long ago.
She probably hired somebody to do it because, he
They
made a
had
lot of
money,
money.
yeah,
Oh,
they
yeah.
had money.
And this was, and their home was right on the same property right there. In fact, the home was evidently pretty magnificent in its own day,
She made a little hell into a little heaven.
She certainly did. She certainly did. And now you've got over 1 million people that come to visit this every year. And I hear of plants that I wish I could grow some of these types of plants in the valley, but unfortunately our weather is a little bit different than it is up there on Victoria
They have
Island.
a lot of rain, a lot of moisture
Yeah.
there, so that's very beneficial.
Betty, it's interesting that I think it was about in 1908. They were world travelers, but by 1908 they created the Japanese garden, and then later on the Italian garden. And they even took they took out their old tennis court and put a garden there. That's where the rose garden is. And the rose garden actually replaced a large kitchen vegetable patch. And that was 1929.
That was utilitarian. The vegetable patch
Yeah.
was also very important, and I'm sure served the needs of many people in the surrounding area there. It kind of surprises me that they would not have left part of the vegetable garden there just for
I don't know
fresh
if they
vegetables.
I don't know if they need it because if you go out from the gardens and you go out around some of the area, and you can see there's a lot of farms around there. In fact, I didn't get a shot of it while we were going by, but I should have. There's a great big pumpkin patch, probably about 1.5 miles from the Bouchard Gardens, and where they every year sell pumpkins. We've been up there a couple of times during that time of year.
Look at that.
And you know what? And this is nothing. Now what you're looking at right here, this is the back. That was the back end of it. That's where they put the seeds and they grow all the stuff before they go and put it in the garden.
I love the fountains, and the fountains just sort of add to the peacefulness of the whole area,
yes, yeah.
doesn't it, as you walk through there?
No, you're absolutely right, it does. And you could spend a lot of time there. There's places to sit down and just enjoy. And I'll tell you what, I would love to have the camera or the film concession there.
Oh,
because
my
everybody is there with their cameras, naturally.
And the advantage now of these new cameras,
The digital ones?
the digital,
Yeah.
you can snap forever and ever a day, and then go back after and pick out
Right.
the ones you want.
Oh, I know.
I just think
beautiful.
it's fantastic.
Well, and these flowers are huge. I mean, they were absolutely beautiful.
But Mark, do we know?
colors.
Do we have any idea how many people are hired there to keep this in?
You know,
in
I think I
condition?
read that at one time, and I've forgotten now. I had a brochure from them, and I don't know what I did with it. But they have a lot of people that are working there all the time.
Oh, there
They
must
have to have.
There
you know?
must be a tremendous staff.
Because you've got acres and acres. Well, not only that, but then they run a restaurant, they run gift shops there as well, and I mean it's a pretty big enterprise. So you can think that Jenny started something way back when. I mean, she really she really did, and started something that gave a lot of people employment, and not only that, but a lot of people enjoyment. Yes.
Do they still have? Is the name still being carried on? Did they have family?
Still, from what I understand, it was still a family run. It's family business, and
it is a business.
yeah, oh
isn't
yeah,
it now?
but no, it's still a
business.
family business. Yeah, and so you know, it's been. I mean, it has become one of the premier West Coast display gardens, and they have always tried to maintain the gracious traditions of the past. And I think that they have really done that. You know, it's beautiful, just
I wonder if
beautiful.
they have. Of course, we weren't there at that time, but I wonder if they celebrate the different seasons of the year with, like at Christmas, do they have?
They do.
Santa Clauses in flower, shrubs, what do you call it, clipped?
Oh, that I don't know, but I know that they invite children there to come in and they can bring a picture that they've made at home or at school of a snowman, and they come and turn it in, and they get a hot chocolate for that. Hey, listen, but it's about all the time that we've got.
Okay.
But anyway, if you're interested in any of the trips Betty has, give her a call at,
559-488-7443.
and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.